of 2008, the International Ethics Standard Board for Accounts, that is ICEBA, IESBA in short, the ICEBA Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, Parts A and B, and other independent requirements applicable to performing audits of financial statements in Uganda. I have fulfilled my other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the ICEBA Code and in accordance with other ethical requirements applicable to performing audits in Uganda. I believe that the audit evidence I have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for my opinion. Emphasis of matter. Without qualifying my opinion, I draw attention to notes 33, 34, and 37 of the financial statements as follows. Unallocated members' funds. Notes 33 and 34 of the financial statements describe how the fund accounted for contributions received from employers that had not yet been allocated to the members' individual accounts as a result of incomplete members' records and errors in the members' records amounting to Uganda shillings 38.21 billion. There is a risk of failure by management to identify the individual beneficiaries. However, management explained that reconciliations are ongoing, which are showing positive trends in regards to the most current years. In addition, management indicated that the board will be contacted for approval of write-offs of non-reconciling members' contributions to the fund's general reserve. URA tax matter. Note 37B to the financial statements indicates how the fund is challenging the basis on which the Uganda Revenue Authority disallowed certain expenses relating to the years of income 2005 to 2012 and raised a tax assessment. The note also indicates that the directors have not recognized any provision for the tax liability of Uganda shillings for 42.2 billion to URA, as management believes the tax treatment adopted by NSSF in accordance with the provisions of sections 22(1)(a) and sections 25 of the Income Tax Act. The note gives details of the case and explains that the directors have disclosed the matter as a contingent liability, as the ultimate outcome of the case cannot presently be determined. Key audit matters. Key audit matters are those matters that, in my professional judgment, were of most significance in my audit of the financial statements of the current period. These matters were addressed in the context of my audit and the financial statements as a whole, and in forming my opinion thereon, I do not provide a separate opinion on these matters. The audit matters are as follows. The first one is accounting for investment associates. The second one is litigation and other claims. And the third one is valuation of investment properties. Right. Now, based on the audit procedures undertaken above, I have noted no significant issues in relation to accounting investment of associates, litigation, and claims of valuation. Responsibilities of the directors for the financial statements. The directors of NSSF are responsible for the preparation of financial statements that give a true and fair view in accordance with international financial reporting standards. Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Act, National Social Security Act, and for such internal control as the directors determine necessary to enable the preparation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or to error. In preparing the financial statements, the directors are responsible for assessing the fund's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing, as applicable, matters related to going concern and using the going concern basis of accounting unless the directors either intend to liquidate the fund or to cease operations or have no realistic alternative but to do so. The auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements. My responsibility, as required under Article 163 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda and Sections 13 and 19 of the National Audit Act 2008, to audit and express an opinion on these statements based on my audit. My objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes my opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that the audit conducted in accordance with ISAI's, that is International Standards of Auditing, will always detect a material misstatement, as to whether it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error, are considered material. If individually or in aggregate, they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decisions of users taken on the basis of these financial statements. As part of an audit, in accordance with ISAI's, I exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. I also identify and assess the risks of material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, design and perform audit procedures responsible to those risks, and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for my opinion. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than that of one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omission, misrepresentations, or the override of internal controls. Obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the fund's internal control. I also evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of accounting estimates and related disclosures made by the directors. Conclude on the appropriateness of the director's use of the going concern basis in accordance, accounting and based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material uncertainty exists related to events or conditions that may cast significant doubt on the fund's ability to continue as a going concern. I conclude that a matter uncertainly exists. I am required to draw attention in my auditor's report on the related disclosure in the financial statements, or if such disclosures are inadequate, to modify my opinion. My conclusion, based on the audit evidence obtained up to the date of the auditor's report. However, further events or conditions may cause the fund to cease to continue as a going concern. Evaluate the overall presentation, structure and content of the financial statements, including disclosures, and whether the financial statements represent the underlying transactions and events in a manner that achieves fair presentation. I communicate with the directors regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiencies in internal control and identified during my audit. Signed, John F.S. Mwanga, Auditor General, on the 24th of September, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auditor General. And ladies and gentlemen, just to mention that we are observing all the SOPs as guided, and all our guests who are walking to the podium will be sanitized to ensure that since we're sharing some of the podiums. That said, I'm sure all members will be looking forward to this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to invite the Managing Director, NSSF, to give us the performance report for financial year 2019-2020. Welcome with me, Richard Biarugaba.
Good morning, viewers, everybody online, and those who are following us in the room. We thought we'd start off with the story about your funds this year. And the answer we are all looking for today is, did your funds survive the storm? I'm about to make presentation on the performance of the fund as we've been able to listen from the Auditor General, who's confirmed that the financial statements do present a fair view of the activities of the fund as at the end of the financial year, 30th June 2020. So my presentation today about the performance will be in 5 parts. The first is to talk about who we are, a little bit of history for us all to come to the same page. The value we've been able to create as a result of the fund being around, the environment in which we operated during the period of the financial statements that we are presenting, and therefore how we performed. But I would also like to put a little bit of time in the plans for the future, specifically with regard to the new law that is currently before Parliament. So who are we? We are a statutory body, the National Social Security Fund. We are a retirement benefits provider. We are set up under an Act of Parliament, Cap 222 of the laws of Uganda. And our mandate is to recruit members, collect contributions, invest those contributions, and pay out accumulated savings in a lump sum to a member who qualifies under 6 conditions. Our purpose is to make lives better, and we passionately dedicate ourselves to making savings a way of life, to enable more and more people improve their well-being. And our vision is to be the social security provider of choice. I'd like to begin by introducing the team that I worked with in the year. My deputy, Patrick Ayota, Agnes, who is our corporation secretary, Stevens, who is our chief financial officer, Geoffrey, who is our head of business, Gerald, who is our chief investment officer, Geoffrey, another Geoffrey, who is head of internal audit, Edward, who is in charge of risk, Jean, who is in charge of our operations, another Gerald, who is in charge of, we got a knack for hiring Gerald and Geoffrey's, and he's in charge of procurement, Barbara, who is in charge of marketing and communications, and Milton, who is in charge of our human resources. That's the team that ensure that we are ticking and are delivering to your requirements. Our strategic goals for the year, by the year 2020-25, between the year 2015 and 2025, is to ensure that our customer satisfaction goes up to 95%. Our fund grows up to 20 trillion shillings. Our operational excellence, make sure that we are able to offer a fruitless or frictionless service whereby our benefits will be paid in 1 day and instant statement update, and then a satisfaction level of 95%. Those are our targets for the long term. These numbers are things that we normally talk about, but would like to really cast them out into the public so that everybody knows what sort of numbers we're dealing with. Currently, total employers registered on our register or on our database is 55,000. Of those, we have 1.32 million members who've been registered by these companies. Our member satisfaction level is around 88%, but currently the only members that are active is about 20,000, and we have active membership of about 664,000. The rest of the numbers tend to be dormant, but some are dormant with a view that they might be resuscitated. One of our growing business lines is the voluntary, where we have 3,600 companies that are voluntarily registered, and under that we have almost 16,400 members who are voluntarily registered and are not required by law to be our members, but they've chosen to do so. And it's one of our growing businesses where people choose to voluntarily register with us. The financials look like today, as at the end of June, we were managing 13.3 trillion shillings with a member value of about 13. We collected almost 1.3 trillion shillings last year, and we made almost 1.5 trillion shillings in revenues with our cost of administration at a low 1.9%. And as you'll see in going forward, it is one of our lowest ratio since the fund was started. On the processing side, we continue to pay out benefits. It takes us about 7 working days, and it takes 1 day to update a member statement. And in total last year, we paid out 496 billion shillings to qualifying members, which is a good thing. Our network has 17 branches run by 600 members of staff, and our staff satisfaction level is about 93%. So you've got a very energized and engaged member of team, which means that they can deliver good results for our members. So how have we created this value? How have the members been able to achieve the value that we create? Our business model means that we make collections of 5% from the member, 10% from the employer. That money is then invested in 3 asset classes. The first is the alternate asset of real estate. 7% of our assets are invested in that. 15% are invested in equities. 78% are invested in fixed income. Revenues are earned. They are then added onto the member's account as interest, and then we pay out the qualifying members. That is our business model, which we use to create value for our members by ensuring that we keep our promise, and our promise is the value proposition. The value proposition is around safety, convenience, and empowerment to our members. The first thing we do under safety is to ensure that when they give us their money, we give it back to them, but we ensure that we have a benchmark we are working to, whereby we are giving 2 percentage points above 10-year inflation, which means that our members receive a reasonable return, and therefore their money is safe and safe from the vagaries of inflation. Number 2 is convenience, making sure that we provide a 1-day turnaround time in benefits, and also offer them other services through a fruitless process. And number 3 is empowering our members, value-adding products and information that enables people to look after their short-term, medium-term, and long-term social needs. And at that stage, we are looking at a customer satisfaction rate of 95%. And you will see that this theme plays quite a bit in the rest of the presentation as I'll be making it. So let's look at the business environment in which the fund worked in during the period that we are presenting. We started off with a video which showed you that a lot of things were going down, but if you look specifically at interest rates, you'll notice that the band of interest rates, those figures are between August 2019 and July 2020. You'll notice that the band of interest has been going down. Bank of Uganda continues to ease monetary policy following the impact of the coronavirus pandemic to allow banks to lend more money. The prime lending rate for most of the banks has been reduced to allow private sector to spur economic development. And the impact of this we've seen is that there have been lower yields on treasury bonds, which is where we invest almost 78% of our funds, therefore reducing the returns on our investment. With regard to the economy itself, not only has the Ugandan economy slowed to about 3%, having been projected to grow at about 6%, but the rest of the globe has been affected. We see that the entire globe has lost almost 5% due to the pandemic. We believe that there will be some recovery in the coming periods, but I believe that for sub-Saharan Africa and Uganda particularly, we'll see that those contractions and recoveries will be much slower than the rest of the economies, because it takes a lot of time for the problems to get to our economies. The other area that we've seen significant impact from the environment is the decision by the central bank to ask commercial banks to suspend dividend payments. And if you look carefully, the previous year we made almost 77 billion shillings in dividend income, and that has dropped drastically to 62 billion, largely because of that decision that the central bank made. This is a slide I'd like people to pay a little bit of attention to. The fund has been growing on the collection side by about 14% for quite a long time, which was a double-digit growth. Before the pandemic started, we had already realized that our contributions were not growing as fast as they should. They were dropped down to about 9%, but as a result of the pandemic, the growth in our collections dropped to 5%. And as I've been saying, this is one of the lowest growth rates that we've seen on the fund's business for a very long time, which means that we need to really find ways of dealing with it. The last slide I'd like to talk about on the environment is the stock exchange. We noticed that exchange represented by the indices of the four countries within the East African region did drop drastically, especially as a result of the pandemic. However, we've seen some recoveries, as you'll probably be able to see during the coming year. So, as a result of that environment, how did we perform? Our income went up by almost 20%, largely driven by interest from fixed income. Our realized income also went up to 1.7, and our expenses ratio, as I said, reduced to its lowest at 1.9. However, as I said before, our dividend income dropped by 19%. So this is just a graph to demonstrate the ins and outs of the revenue, which shows you that one of the things we need to look at that has been affecting our revenue is obviously the performance of the stock exchange. So if you look at the performance during 2019, that big slump was largely unrealized losses on the stock exchange, which thankfully we've been able to overcome. On the income side, against the expenses, our expenses continue to be flat, represented by the orange line. Our revenue has gone up, apart from the bump we had in 2019, but the interest, as you can see, to our members continues to go up, and we did have a record year of 15% about 2 years ago. So we continue to create value for our members by giving them that return. If you look specifically at where inflation has been moving, you'll notice that inflation has been coming down on an average, largely because we've removed the large inflation rates that the country experienced towards 2011, 2012, 2013. And those averages have now come down. So the question we have all on our minds is, with an average rate of 6.2%, what rate will the minister declare today, comparing it to what he declared last year at 11%. However, on average, 5 percentage points is the return we've given to our members over and above the rate of inflation, which is a positive thing. Very quickly, a slide that I would like to share with the public and our members is to show that when a member retires, by the time they get their lump sum, they've only contributed around 22% of their money within there. A majority of that money has been contributed by the employer, who contributes 10%, and NSSF will have contributed another 34%, largely out of interest earned and paid into the member's account. Quite an important slide, following the discussions that we've been seeing around with regard to how much members get when they invest in NSSF. The balance sheet targets show that we've been able to continue to grow our asset base. It grew by about 17%. Our fixed income returns were around 15.8%. Of course, that's before tax. So when you gross that one down, it comes down significantly. Our returns on equities were about 6.5%, and our returns on real estate were around 6.4%. But you'll also note that the returns on equity would have been a lot higher if the market hadn't come down drastically in March on the onset of the pandemic. This is just to give you a sneak review of our investment asset allocation, which shows that of the 13.3 trillion shillings that are invested, the majority, 78%, is held in high-yielding bonds spread around the region, with 15% held in equities in all the companies within the East African region, and 7% held in real estate in major projects that are around the country. So, the fund is fully funded, 13 trillion shillings, 13.3 trillion shillings in assets, almost 13.1 trillion shillings in member funds. So, despite the environment, we remain on course to deliver our long-term strategic goals, which I started off by saying, on the customer and 95% satisfaction rate. Last year, that figure went down slightly to 88% from 84%, looking at the detailed graph rather than the big graph. And some of the biggest challenge we continue to have, you will see that the lowest rating on customer satisfaction was around the products that we give to our members. And we are hoping that the proposed amendments to the NSSF Act will enable the fund to provide more product range so that we can look after our members' needs, not only in the long term, but also within the short term and the medium term, as I'll explain a little bit later. The fund size continues to grow very nicely from 5.6 trillion shillings in 2015. Today we ended at 13.3, and we are on course to hit our target of 20 trillion by the year 2025. The other area we keenly follow is on service delivery. We would like to do a one-day turnaround for our benefits. Currently, we are around 7 working days, and that has been done through automation and also increasing the self-service options to our members. The last area which we keenly look at is our staff satisfaction, and that has continued to improve because of the interventions that we've introduced in the fund to improve welfare and satisfaction. The main challenge has been around the young workforce who easily get bored, and to overcome this, we've introduced an internal innovation program to enable our members to get our staff to get involved and deliver new value, which we pass on to our members as benefits. So the fund is also part of the community. Our performance includes how we contribute to the community, and I'd like to spend just one slide talking about some of the things we've done with the community. 40% of the government bonds today are held by NSSF. Let me repeat that. 40% of all government bonds are held by NSSF. We have been building iconic buildings. That one that you see there is our Ginger branch, but there is another beautiful branch in Mbarara. There are a lot of good buildings we're putting up in Kampala, and we've created over 2,600 jobs through our investments, especially in housing and infrastructure. And we've also partnered with the European Union in a fund which enables small and medium-sized companies to be able to raise capital, equity capital, patient capital, and we believe that that has impacted almost 3,000 farmers in Uganda to be able to contribute to the development of Uganda. In addition to that, we've been able to do a lot of CSR. We have a plan with our students at the university where we have a career advice, introducing them to the journey of saving for retirement even before they even start working. We've also been able to touch almost 8,000 students who have started savings, and we've already collected 18 billion shillings. In addition to that, our students we've been able to cover almost 25 corporate institutions to extend internship through our graduate trainee program, including our own company. We've been a big fan of raising blood for the community. We did make a donation of 5,000 COVID testing kits to the government of Uganda during the height of the pandemic. And we have been able to log almost 100,000 hours of sponsored digital libraries for children, both in secondary and in primary and in secondary school, where we've been able to make those donations and help their libraries to get a lot better. So we've been able to pay back to society, not only by extracting from it, but also contributing back to it. So what are our future plans? Our future plans is we are building capabilities to deliver the NSSF of tomorrow. Our fund will cater for a member who is across the whole life cycle. One of the things that the fund is criticized is that we only think about their retirement, but how about their adulthood? We only look at old age, and we do not care about our members. So one of the things we want to do is to really look at what is available within the risks that are covered or that are meant to be covered by the International Labour Organization. They are supposed to be 9. Today we only cover 3 of those risks. One is old age, the second is invalidity benefit, and the third is survivor's benefit. So if you look at medical care, sickness benefit, employment injury benefit, unemployment benefit, family benefit, maternity benefit, those are not covered. So one of the things we are hoping will happen is that if we get our intervention through the Act, the Amendment Act that is before Parliament, there are 3 objectives of that bill. One is to increase coverage. More citizens should be covered. Secondly is to increase the scope of benefits so that there is a wider range of benefits we can give to our members. The third is to increase the adequacy of benefits so that there is a higher benefit to our members when they retire, so that they do not only retire with a small amount. And so how do we hope to increase the coverage? One of the, or 2 of the clauses that within the Act, Amendment number 7 and Amendment number 4, will allow the informal participants to contribute to the fund under a voluntary scheme. Under Amendment number 4, we are hoping that there will be a drop in the number of employer thresholds so that the mandatory employers can begin to contribute for members even if they have less than 5 individuals. We believe that this would be a big deal for us and also a big deal for Uganda, because formal employers and employees are the only ones who currently contribute to NSSF. We believe that there's a huge amount of informal workers who will then become eligible to save for the fund. And in addition to that, they would also, those who are in the formal sector would voluntarily be able to top up on their accounts so that they can have a bigger pot when they retire. The second area is adequacy of the benefit that we pay out at the very end. Again, there are 3 clauses in there. The first one is about tax exemption on contributions and investments. We believe that if these tax exemptions are included in there, it will give impetus to people to save more, but also the fund to get more money and pay its members a higher return. But it will also allow us as a fund to have a bigger stick to be able to improve on our compliance and also recover areas for employers who have not paid up on their benefits. We think that this will lead to a larger benefit pot so that people can get a bigger retirement package at the very end. The last benefit of the Act that is currently before Parliament is to increase the scope of benefits that are provided. In there are 2 clauses. One is to remove the restriction on the benefits that the fund can provide and empower the board to prescribe additional benefits. That's amendment number 9. And secondly, to prescribe how many members shall access their benefits for voluntary savings, the midterm access, under amendment number 10. The fund will have the legal ability to develop new products for our members, especially for the short term and the medium term, in order to allow our members to have more than just what they get at the moment during retirement. So as you can see, there is a lot that is in the Act that I believe in the amendment bill that needs to be brought to the floor and concluded, and the President accent, so that we can then begin to implement these new beautiful things for our members. In conclusion, I'd like to end where I started on our value proposition. So, we will continue to preserve and grow your savings. We will continue to deliver services in a convenient manner, and we'll also make sure that we will give value and products across the life cycle of the member, and we can only do that if the amendments to the Act have been passed, so that we can begin to continue to deliver on the promise that I've made and we've continued to make to our members. Thank you so much for listening to me, and have a great day and week, and hopefully a great message when the Minister comes to announce the interest.
Hello. Hope you and your families are keeping safe in these unprecedented times. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected livelihoods, the economy, and changed the way we operate. What hasn't changed is our mandate to collect and preserve our members' savings and our unwavering commitment to transparency and accountability. Therefore, I would like to personally invite you for the fund's first virtual annual members meeting, which will take place on the 28th of September 2020, starting at 9 a.m. We will give an account to you, our members, on the state of the fund, performance for the financial year 2019-2020,
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As we await the Minister's arrival, let me take this opportunity to again welcome my professional colleagues, the Auditor General, Mr. John Mwanga. Thank you for coming. Your colleague, Mr. Joseph Hiria, you were here last year. Thank you very much. And I believe I saw my friend from Ernst & Young, the country chief, Mr. Geoffrey Byamgisha. Thank you for having done the audit of our fund for the financial year 2019-2020. I want to welcome my colleagues, the board members, management of NSSF. I can see the Deputy Managing Director here, Mr. Patrick Ayota. I can see the Corporation Secretary, Madam Agnes Vayeta Sharaza. I think I saw Mr. Stephen Zimwanje, the Chief of Finance. I have seen Mr. Gerard Kasato, Chief Investment Officer, and I believe others. I welcome you to this 8th annual members meeting, which also is our first virtual meeting. We call it the new normal because of the pandemic of COVID-19 challenge. So those who have connected with us online and from home screens, thank you for participating in this function, and I certainly appreciate the over 25,000 members who registered online to attend this year's annual members meeting. This is a good sign of your unwavering commitment to your fund. Still in a virtual manner, we call it scientific. I will introduce my other colleagues with whom we serve on the board. We are currently 9, led by myself as chairman. We have the managing director here. He's also a member of the board. We have workers representatives, Director Stephen Mgole, Director Isaac Magora, and Director Penina Tukamwesiga. We also have representatives from employers, represented by Director Florence Maweje and Mr. Fred Bamwesije of the aviation, the current MD, acting MD of the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. We also have representatives of government, represented by the PS Minister of Finance and PS Minister of Gender, and particularly we have Mr. Patrick Ochailap, who is Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, who represents the Supervising Ministry of Finance. The board, despite the COVID challenge, has continued to play its dutiful role, and I'm glad to inform you that we have complied with all our rules as spelled out by the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority and the National Social Security Fund Act, Cap 222 of 1985. And I would like to report as follows, that we again come back here for accountability purposes. As you have heard from the Auditor General, adequate accounting records were maintained and the accounts were complete in time and audited by both the Auditor General and his delegatees, Ms. Ernest and Young. And as you heard, we received a clean, unqualified opinion. And this is for the 10th year running. So there must be some good governance and guidance and supervision to have such a continuous clean observation of how we maintain and run the fund. Dear members, we have also continued to play our fiduciary role as a board, and over the last 12 months the fund has continued to fulfill its mandate as spelled out by the NSSF Act. And the MD pointed out 4 roles as required by the legislation. But I would love to summarize this into the 3 main ones. The first one was recruiting members, but I would like to take that one as guaranteed. I beg my indulgence. I didn't recognize Mr. Martin Insubuga, the CEO of our regulatory body, UBRA. Thank you very much for coming. We are always happy to see you around, and thank you for all your interventions and reports. I recall a report you gave out, I think, a month ago, where you said the pension sector now stands at 14 trillion shillings in savings, which is very good for this country. And out of the 14 trillion, NSSF has 13 trillion. And Stephen, if you do your little arithmetic, 13 over 14 should come somewhere between 90–93% of the savings of the pension sector. So we thank you for your guidance wherever necessary. So the 3 things we do as the fund: we collect contributions, and this was shown in the business model by the managing director. We, this year, collected an increased amount of 1.27 trillion compared to 1.2 trillion in the last year. 1.27 trillion, that is, if we put it in US dollars, I believe nearly $400 million in collections. After collecting this money from members, we are supposed to invest it wisely and judiciously so that members do not lose their capital amount and we get a return. Judiciously, we don't over-risk where we invest this money. And as you saw from the MD's brief, the revenue we collected from these investments this year was nearly 1.5 trillion, 1.47 to be exact, compared to 1.25 trillion last year. The interest earned from our fixed income, from the businesses we invest in, called equities or shares we have invested, from the rentals and the sales of real estate properties, we were able to raise 1.47 trillion for the fund. And after getting this revenue, we also we are mandatorily required to pay out to qualifying members who have reached the retirement age or who satisfy the conditions for the other two benefits. We pay them. We pay the beneficiaries promptly, and we have continued to pay them promptly. And this year, we've paid out 496 billion Uganda shillings compared to nearly 450 billion last year. People at times in the media, my friends, the media didn't welcome you again. Oh, I'm so sorry. The media, thank you for always here. Honorable Minister, we are very happy to see you. We are getting worried. We are happy that you have arrived safely. The Honorable Minister informed us that he was traveling this morning all the way from his constituency in Buyanja, Kibale district. And we are happy you have arrived safely. So we paid out benefits this year, 496. That is roughly 10 billion per month. We've been paying out cash per month to roughly 2,000 members who come to collect their money from NSSF after they have qualified. And these people usually, they don't announce that we have received our money, but we've been paying out nearly 10 billion per month, 40 billion per month, nearly 40 billion per month, 10 billion per week. Therefore, this is not small money. And the people say NSSF is not paying, is not intervening. We have been paying 2,000 people, 40 billion per month in cash seamlessly and continuously. And we promise we shall continue. In real estate, I want to report that these previously stalled projects are now moving very well. You recall we were all crying about the slow progress on pension towers, which had been slowed and stalled for about 8 years. I think this week, 50% of the work on that 32-story building will be finished, and we expect that the contractor will hand over the building to us sometime in February, March 2022. So, big progress. Lubowa, we want to build about 3,000 units there, and we started with 308 units this year. They will be finished, handed over to us in June next year, about 9 months away. So please take interest. We shall be selling them, and the profit we make, we give it to the back to the members. The amendment of the law still remains our big request, Honorable Minister. We plead that you follow this through with your colleagues in the Parliament. We asked and begged last year, 12 months along, we are near there, I think. And I hope it will be due for presidential signature and assent sooner rather than later. And I will only mention one new clause. The MD talked of 7 clauses. Last year I talked about 5 clauses, but today I will only talk about 1 clause, which has been a lot in the press about mid-term access. We want to continue as a board intervening in members' livelihood, in their life cycle, other than waiting until they are of age. And as a board, we pronounced ourselves on this, and we would love to have mid-term access to members after a certain eligibility criteria. And the eligibility criteria, we proposed 45 years, and at least having served for 10 years. And we think we can afford that. When we calculated, we found we would only pay for the start 4%, about 600 billion out of the 13.3 trillion which we have. 4% we can afford. And we plead to our parliamentarians to review that clause without making it too open and making it unsustainable. Our focus still remains on the age benefit, which is I think 80% of our focus, but we think we can intervene in about 20% with this flexibility of mid-term access. Honorable Minister, COVID-19 has been a challenge globally and continues to be a challenge. I appeal to everybody to listen to the Minister of Health and the guidance by His Excellency the President so that our members out there remain safe. We remained relatively resilient in our earnings, and we want to assure members that we must pay. We must pay at least 2 percentage points above inflation, so that members' capital savings are maintained and grow and protected from inflation erosion. Honorable Minister, I want to thank you for your unwavering support accorded to the fund during the last financial year. I thank NSSF staff, board, and all our other stakeholders for the good collaboration that we continue to share. I thank our members and assure them that we value their feedback, and we promise to always respond promptly, support the fund, The fund is your strong strategic institution owned by Ugandans and for Ugandans. Please support it. Honorable Minister, after those small remarks, I would request that you come and make your remarks, sir, for God and my country.
The Auditor General, Mr. John Mwanga, Chairman, Board of Directors, Mr. Patrick Byabakama Kaberenge, the Managing Director, Mr. Richard Byarugaba, our dear members, the media, and our agents and staff. It's a great pleasure that once again I come back to preside over the 8th annual members meeting. I'm glad to note that, am I permitted to pull this a bit down? Yes. Because it makes my speaking very difficult. I'm glad to note that Audit Report 2019-2020 has declared a clean audit report for the just concluded financial year 1920. And for that, I would like to applaud the board, management, and staff of the National Social Security Fund for efficiently running the organization. I rarely give credit. Even when I was a teacher, I was to score 60, 70. You must have worked extra hard. I rarely give credit, but I think credit is worth to give where it is supposed to be. I really want to congratulate you, Richard, and your team for, I think you are one of the most, under my ministry, one of the most efficiently run institutions. Apart from the other small issue with your deputy, you don't occupy my time to sort out issues. But other institutions, every other day, this is wrong, this day. Oh, so I really want you to keep that spirit. Then you'll make my job as a minister much easier so that I can concentrate on strategic issues. The NSSF Amendment Bill. I have also noted the chairman's request to me concerning the NSSF Amendment Bill that is before Parliament. From here, I'm going to see, before even I got cabinet, I'm going to see the speaker and we harmonize. There are two issues which are still where we have failed to agree. The first issue is the issue of midterm withdrawal. Members of the leaders of the members of NSSF are saying somebody should access of 20% of his or her savings after he has completed 10 years of should we call it subscription? Should we call it subscription? Contribution. On the other hand, we are saying, but what is the core reason? What is the purpose of this contribution? What? And the experts gave me an answer, said, it is to cater for somebody once he has retired. I don't know whether I'm right. Are they right, those people?
You're right.
Yes. The purpose of we putting this arrangement in place and asking employees to kutereka, you know kutereka, to keep, is for you to have something that you can fall back to when you have retired. Energy is not so much, you have no regular income, then you resort to that. You may have seen people who do not subscribe to this kind of schemes when they retire, unless they have really prepared other sources of income. Some people live very miserable life, I won't tell you. I've seen it with among my fellow politicians, and I've seen it even among other people. So we don't want somebody who has been working and earning a decent living when he's 70, 80, he's just living a miserable life, depending on the children. The children have got their own problems. Where do you have to go to the children? They can give you work assist if they want, but you don't depend on the children. So that is our argument. The purpose of the whole of this scheme, among others, is to make sure that when somebody has retired, he has something he can regularly get. And there is a proposal that if you want a mid-term, then this go for a circle. Yes, this go for a circle where you can withdraw as and when you want. That was the argument we had in the State House. But I'm sorry, some of the people, some of our colleagues, particularly some members of parliament, particularly the leaders of the workers, they are saying, even during COVID, you remember during COVID? Sometime when the thing was squeezing us, people said, no, I have got my 20 million shillings. I have my, some who do have as far as 100 million. Yeah. Some members have had 100 million. Why should I starve? You give me some of that money so that I don't starve. That's how the whole issue became so alive. So that's the point. If we want money we can access at irregular times, then the best thing is to go in for a circle, because when you get circle, you put your money there, if you want to withdraw it, you withdraw it at any time you want. So that's one point. The other point is the point of dual reporting. Some people are saying, when the Honorable Janet Mkwaya was still the minister, she came to debate this issue. We know we are the people in charge of labor. If we are in charge of labor, then we should be also involved in reporting and checking. But I said, there is a provision. You have a whole member of, I think the permanent secretary, is it the permanent secretary? And then the members themselves, the owners. Is it 2 members? 4. The members are there. If you want to know what is taking place within the fund, let your permanent secretary tell you. Or you send your ideas and thinking, and then it goes to the board sanctions, and then we move. But to have an institution reporting to bosses is extremely dangerous. Even with the owner organization, if now I have to report to another minister, then I have to report to the prime minister, then I have to report to the president, and receive instructions from 3 quarters. You can't do very well. You can't do very well. NSSF, in real terms, is a financial issue. It's not a merely issue of providing a facility for our members to save and then just withdraw. It's a financial issue. What it does within the economy, the economy has a lot of bearings. And I think by constitution, anything to do with the economy and anything to do with funds and money is a prerequisite of the Minister of Finance. So, but I think that to me, I talked to the Speaker sometime, I think that one we seem to be agreeing, but it's still stony in the minds of other things, of other people. This bill is a good one for members, as it will usher in the much desired flexibility to provide additional benefits. It will also expand social security coverage. Currently, only 2 million out of 16 million of Ugandan working population have social security coverage of any form. This bill will therefore address this gap by making it mandatory for all employers, including those who are employing less than 5 people, to remit social security contribution to their workers. I think that the people who passed the old law, they forgot that even we small employers were as important as big employers. I think they missed that point. You know, now you must have you must have a minimum of 5 workers. Even if we are 2, what's the problem? Maybe it could be the problem would be the administration of, you know, how to get those people. But with the modern technologies, I don't have to come to NSSF to apply for this or to send money. I don't have to do that. Now that the world has become digital, we do everything online. So even if there is somebody, even if now Kasaija, I am employing myself on my farm, I should also save. What's the problem? Is there a problem, Mr. MD? No. So, to me, I feel that is a very good development. And of course, the fund will expand. When it expands, more money in the hands of Richard, then they will also, we shall deal with them. You know, government, we borrow quite a bit of that money to run your country. We borrow a bit of that come through some channels which I don't want to disclose. But we don't cheat. We pay back. If we are afraid to pay, then you tell me, Minister, you are telling lies. We pay as and when we have agreed to pay back. This bill is also will also spur economic development by increasing the ratio of savings to GDP. Now you know, Ugandans were very Ugandans were very poor savers. Are you aware of that? Ugandans were very poor savers of money. We like to live as if tomorrow there is no tomorrow. Luxurious things when it is not necessary. COVID has done a good job as far as I'm concerned on these parties. You spend $500 million shillings on a wedding party of your son. Supposing you gave them 300 million and you say children go and start build a house. Would that not be better investment? You find people in the home, everybody has got a car. Living at times beyond people's means because you want to show off that you are a very important person in the village. Therefore, you put up a 5-storied houses. So a 2, 3, 5-storied house in the village, whom are you trying to impress? But many Ugandans, I can tell you, do that. If you want to disqualify me to object, I can tell you a number of people, but I don't want to shame them. So, the issue of saving. The more saving, let me tell you a secret. Now let me speak as a Minister of Finance now. If Ugandans who could save, and there is money, Ugandans, we have money, we use the money among ourselves, there is money. If we could save, now our savings to GDP is about 20%. If we could save 50%, then you would have solved my problem of not going to queue and be humiliated in certain international organizations because I'm asking money for money. I will just make an arrangement here Like, and I don't have to queue and go to beg Richard here for him to lend me. No. It's a system put in place. We just do the correspondence, and the money comes to the treasury. I find activities. When I have earned money from through whatever means like revenue collection, I pay back. It will create our it will strengthen our independence as a country. Savings. Savings. Teach our children. Me, you know me, they call me Mukonogamu, and I am Mukonogamu. I don't hesitate on that one, and I don't regret it. I don't curse myself. Me to spend my money, I first weigh. Where is this money? Is it going to bring back a benefit, or is it not going to bring benefit? Including in the politics. When I'm in the constituency, I don't simply say, as I see some people throwing money, no. You know, my father is the one who taught me this practice. When we were still young, you know, those are people who are more focused than ourselves today. He, at the beginning of the year, he had like a small box, and he put a log. You know, when he would go to work in the shamba and he had sold his coffee, he would pay us 1 shilling. Then he would say, of that 1 shilling, 50 cents in the box. The other 50 cents, you're going to eat mandazi, you're going to eat kabaragarag, go and do whatever you want. 50. Then it will be opened near to Christmas, or when the new term is beginning. Then he will bring the key, open and say, now you can have this money, go and buy yourself a trouser, or go and buy yourself, no, at that time there were no trousers for us in the primary school. Go and buy a new shirt, go and buy a new pair of shorts, using your own savings. Are we teaching our children that way? Answer me. Are we teaching our children to save money? We must save money. For the day that things will not turn out to be as good. On a rainy day in the future, you must save money. Like during COVID, thank you very much. By the way, I understand. May I tell you a story? I understand many Ugandans, especially in towns, they have now learned. They have learned. I got a delegation recently to come and see me and say, the minister, we have learned. We have not learned how to save money. Many people suffered. Yet they had money before, but they decided to spend it. If you are investing in it, that's not a problem. But it's consumption. Yes, we must not starve ourselves. True. But you find, you ladies, now I will turn it to you. Why do you have 50 dresses in the wardrobe? For what? 3 years she has never even put on one. I see it in my I see it in my road home. 3 years she has never put on that dress. Now what is it for? Pair of shoes. She has 30 pairs of shoes. Ladies, you can dispute with me, but I can tell you I have seen these things both in my own home and also. What for? 30 pair of shoes. You spend 6 months without even putting on one. Why don't you leave that money and go and save it? And it would produce more money for you, by the way. You buy a shoe, the shoe will begin even to deteriorate before you have put it on. So that's loss of money, please. You got to understand. This will also spur economic development by increasing the ratio of saving to GDP, which is critical for the economic development of Uganda. I've just said that one. Uganda's ratio of saving to GDP now stands at 21.2%. It stood at 21.2% in 2019. So the bill will enable us increase this ratio. This is what I would call half-forced savings. I pledge my support to ensuring this bill will be passed. That one I can give you my assurance. And as I told you, from here I'm going to talk to the Speaker, and we iron up all these things. We hope we can pass this bill tomorrow, Tuesday. Economies world over have been affected by the effects of the COVID pandemic lockdown, including our own country for sure. The government did its best to contain the pandemic, and as a result, Uganda has been named amongst the top 10 countries globally who have contained the virus. However, our economy did not escape the effects of the lockdown. Don't fear. I had a professor at university. He was an American, and said, "Hey, young man, learn how to turn a disadvantage into an advantage." That was his preaching to us. As we say in English, for every cloud there is a silver lining. COVID has come with negative side, but also positive side. It has opened us, some of us, our eyes. And you will continue to hear and see. We are now putting our foot to limit as much as possible anything Uganda can produce, not to import it. We want import. What there is, our terminology is import substitution, export promotion. It has opened our eyes. You'll hear in the subsequent financial years. We want to produce as much as possible what we want in Uganda here in the country. And the potential is unlimited, limitless. So we might have had that bad effect, but on the other hand, I think it is a blessing in disguise. The economy shrank by 3.2% in the second quarter of 2020, and economic growth rates have been adjusted now to 3.1% as opposed to the initial projections which had indicated 5.4% growth rate. But I want to assure again, because I'm in constant, almost daily touch with my statistics department, the economy is beginning to grow again. You remember the Kathingi, my Kathingi, remember? People started reading, Mr. Nkashaija, you were talking shit, you're talking nonsense. I can tell you the economy at that time was definitely growing up. There's no question about that. If it hadn't been for COVID this year, this financial year running, we could have been at 6.5, almost 7%. But as I said, despite this slowdown, the economy, because I am monitoring around the country, economic activities are moving. And you know what has happened? It has taught Ugandans to work like bees. People are working. If you go in the villages, people are working. And I'm sure that same spirit is going to be even transmitted into the rural areas to compensate for the suffering we went through. So, it's my view, everything being equal, your economy will begin moving at 7-8% growth per annum. Growth in various sectors were minimal, with the industry growing at a minimum of 2.3%, services at 3.6%, and agriculture at 4.2%. The economic slowdown had a ripple effect on the fund's business for sure, especially the contributions from members. Because if the members are not earning, definitely do not expect them to contribute. Now let me turn to the fund performance. I therefore want to congratulate NSSF team upon delivering a remarkable performance for the financial year 2019-2020 in spite of the challenging macro environment. I've already started that one. I have noted that the fund's assets grew by 17% from 11.3 trillion to 13.28 trillion. Total revenue increased by 14.7 from 1 trillion 254 trillion in the financial year 2018-2019 to 1 trillion 0.47 in year 2019-2020. This is a very good news for the members, but also for the government of Uganda and the country. It's not good news for only members, but it's good news for all of us. Now I come to interest declaration. Having observed what we have, therefore, as a result of this remarkable performance in exercise of the powers conferred upon me by Section 35, Part 2 of the NSSF Act, I declare an interest of 10.75%. We should clap a little bit. Let me also join you. Let me also join you. Let me repeat. Let me repeat. I therefore declare an interest of 10.75. This translates into 1.14 trillion to be paid in the interest as interest to the members for the financial year 2019-2020. So I congratulate you, members. Your fund has now made you even richer. This new rate will be applied, and the resultant sums will be credited to the balance outstanding on the members' account as of 1st July 2019, in accordance with the provisions of our law. This rate I have declared today is higher than 6.2%, the 10-year average rate of inflation. In other words, for those of you, these terms may confuse you, your money has remained, not only has it remained in value the same, but it has done what? It has gone up. So in other words, you are richer than when this year started. So you should congratulate yourselves, members. The truth is that the fund has given the members real return, having eliminated the risk of erosion of the value of your savings as a result of inflation. And the savings have in real terms grown. Let me repeat this. The savings in real terms have grown. So if you, just give you an example, if your your account, you had 10 million shillings, 10 million shillings 2 years ago could buy two pikipikis. Now, with this additional increase in your account, you can now afford to buy, assuming the prices have not changed, you can now buy two pikipikis, maybe and a quarter. So literally what it means, your wealth now has increased by a quarter of what you have in the fund. I would like to applaud the board and the management for ensuring that members' savings are preserved. I know many of you may not be economists. Inflation, you know the one thing the inflation does? Inflation means the prices moving from going up. It reduces, inflation reduces your value the value of your money. Something you are supposed to have bought, say, 10,000. If inflation is moving, maybe shall we say 20%, at the end of the year, you will need 12,000 shillings in order to buy the same item. Now, what the fund is doing, because inflation will always be there, a bit of inflation. What this fund now, the system is, if the value of your 10 shillings, you would buy an article A. If the fund did not give you more money, then it would mean that now your fund, in value, in terms of purchasing value, it would be 8,000 shillings. But now, instead of being 8,000 shillings, actually now it has moved to 12,000 shillings. You should explain these things to those people who are not having economics in their hands. Explain what does it mean. My money, I think you should really write an article on this so that the members understand what does it mean when you say that this year my money has grown in value. By giving examples, the purchasing parity, the whatnot, on that kind of thing. Now, I wanted to say bye-bye to you all because I have to go. But let me repeat, Mr. MD and your staff and members of the board, thank you very much for your job well done. Keep it going like that. We hope that this next year, we should be talking even a better language than we are talking today. We believe COVID is here. It's going to be here to stay for some time. We have to get used to it like we have been used to other diseases. What we need to do is to avoid it. And that's my last word. You want to use this opportunity. The medicine we have now for COVID is to avoid it. Avoid it. And the Minister of Health, the President they have told us how to avoid it. This thing here. It is not just maridadi to pretend or whatnot. This thing here. Social distancing. Wash your hands. Don't allow Tom and Dick and Harry to come to your house. Don't go in crowded places. Avoid as much as being close to people you are not sure about. Even among your own people. Because I will tell you a case, but I will not mention the name. If they are not living with you, be careful with them. Don't get very close to them. I have a friend of mine who died barely 2 weeks ago of this disease. He was an old man, good friend of mine. Who infected him? His daughters, his children. The children live in a different side of the town, so they come to such daddy. And you know when the children come at home, how we hug them. And the man got the disease. Good enough, he knew. But he remained stubborn. The children said, no, Daddy, let's take you. So please, the slightest moment you feel unwell, go for a test. Me as your Minister for Finance in Bonambaga, I want all of you alive. That's how I can run this economy effectively. I can't run an economy on dead bodies. I can't. So please be careful, including your relatives, especially when you are not staying with them. Now, we are working hard. I wish I could have every Ugandan tested, but they are very expensive. That testing costs $60 something, just one single test. We ministers, in order to access State House now, you have to test every 2 weeks. That is $60 gone. Let's encourage our scientists. As I said, this disease is with us I don't see it quickly disappearing. We are waiting for two things. To live with this, with it a little bit more assured. A vaccine. And I'm telling you, our scientists are working. And also in the outside world. I have given them all the money they need to develop a vaccine. So that when it's like measles, you remember the measles of children? We get pricked, we used to be get pricked. And as they are pricked now, if we can get a vaccine. In the absence of a vaccine, a cure that will be able to be accessed by every Ugandan. That also our scientists are working on. So let's pray, those of us who believe in God, that through the mighty God's grace, these scientists will be able to discover a cure and a vaccine. Then we can live with it. Those who are careless will die, as you know. Aren't we living with HIV? HIV is still very much around. You don't know that? Do you know that it is still around? Do you know? You don't seem to say. If you are saying it's not around, you're going to do funny things. It's around. Those who are careful, who listen and are careful, we are still breathing. Those who are careless and they don't want to listen, they are gone. I'm not frightening you, but I'm telling you the real truth. And me, I like truth. So this COVID will live with us. The way me I'm looking at it, I'm not a scientist, but I'm just using interpolation and world trends of other diseases. It will live with us, but the most important thing is how do we control its effect on the population. Cure or vaccine. And the world continues, like it has continued with other similar pandemics. This is not the first pandemic. So feel confident, feel firm. In the coming year, let's all put our gears together to prevent falling sick. We work hard, generate more revenue. When you generate more incomes, when you generate more incomes, your Minister of Finance here will get more revenue, more projects to make the lives of Ugandans comfortable. And we die when we are 80, 900 years. May God bless you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And please do not worry about the numbers in the room. The majority of our members were watching on television. And we want to thank you as our chief guest for announcing the 10.75 interest for our members. Without wasting time, allow me quickly invite our panelists this morning. I'll invite back the Managing Director, NSSF, Richard, and then invite Agnes Tiwaita Sharaza, who is our Corporation Secretary, and also invite Mr. Gerald Kasato, who is our investments boss, to all return, to come to the front. We don't have a lot of time, as you can see, and I think we have 15 minutes where we will run through some of your questions. We want to apologize to you online who have sent all these questions, and so we may not go through all of them, but we promise we will be having our team online share some of the feedback from these questions you have shared. Very quickly to you, Richard, something that came from your presentation, and maybe you would want to expound on this. Contributions growth is falling, and many are wondering what are the factors you believe are leading to this decline?
Briefly, the main factor is our business model. We've extracted the juices of the business. It also reflects that formal employment has not been growing as high as it previously was. We noticed that because not very many new companies are registering. The other one is that our growth rates in value has been largely around an increase in salaries. And some companies, because of the hard times, have not been increasing their salaries as much as possible. So it's a moment of factors, largely driven by the fact that the model is becoming mature, The relationship management model, which we use for improving compliance, also has its own limitations. One of the things, as you know, is that we need the law to help us in making sure that we collect money. And that law, as you know, is part of the amendments that are part of the, because the fines are very small, so people don't really take you seriously when you say we're going to take you through court and you'll have to pay a fine. So I think that it's all those factors which basically have brought down the rates. We are very confident that with the amendments in the Act, that should give the fund a little bit more scope in terms of coverage, and will also bring a little bit of scope in terms of compliance and giving the fund a bigger stick to be able to deal with defaulting employers.
Thank you, Richard. Speaking to the law and the bill that is in Parliament, Agnes, quick question. Where are we at? What next? Because your members, and a lot of these questions, I think 99% of the questions really focused on the bill, and you want to tell us how far we have come.
Thanks, Maurice, and good morning, members and whoever is following us. That's a very good question. I recall during, at the height of the pandemic, when our members were really appealing to the fund to release some of the contributions, we repeatedly told our members that as a statutory body, the fund is established by law, our hands were tied, and that we could not do much until the law is amended by Parliament. So where we are at now is Parliament is considering the reports from its committees, those of gender and finance, and once that is done, if Parliament agrees with the proposals that have been presented by those committees, Parliament will pass the bill. So we expect that the bill will be passed. Now, when the bill is passed, it's got to be assented to by the President. So it is after the President has assented to the bill, and that assent would come with a commencement date as well, that we will then be able to enforce the provisions of the amendments that are currently being discussed. So we are waiting, one, for Parliament to conclude its deliberations and hopefully pass the bill, and thereafter, most importantly, for the presidential assent. And then we'll be keeping our members updated on the progress thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. Gerald, to you. The performance of the fund for the financial year 1920, of course, came amidst COVID. And so members are wondering, given the lessons learned in the last quarter and since March when we had these lockdowns, are we making different investment decisions in this financial year?
Thank you, Maurice. I think we have a very resilient portfolio. We've done it, we've managed to do it over the years. You'll notice that the total return that we made in the financial year was 13.82%. And the minister, in his speech, in his budget speech, actually indicated that the economy grew as a result of COVID by 3.1%. And that was below the average in the last four financial years, because the last 4 financial years it's been growing at 5.4%. So what we've basically done is that most of our money is in fixed income. So 78% is in fixed income. We only have 15% in equities and 7% in real estate. So even when the stock market suffered as a result of COVID, we managed to stay resilient, because the total return we made, the return we made on the fixed income asset class was almost 16%, and we managed to get 6.5% in equities and 6.4% in the real estate asset class. So in terms of are we making different investment decisions, we are staying the course, and the way we manage that is the way we allocate assets, the way we allocate money to assets, because on average, we've managed to perform much better than the stock exchange. Year to date, the stock exchange has been almost down by double digits, whereas our total return on the stock exchange came in at 6.5%.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Richard, I'll come to questions that have been sent to us online, and they really come across for all of you. So I'll begin with you, Richard. Miles Abdu says, NSSF, you say that those who have saved for 10 years and above or are 45 years will be allowed 10% to withdraw from their savings. When is this taking effect?
I think that's still subject to discussion. I'm sure you heard in the minister's presentation. There's still two minds to that. The Parliament has come up with some suggestions. In fact, there are more midterm access suggestions that have come through, including one on a minority report, which basically is offering almost 70% for people who are disabled, and I think 40% for those who have not worked for 3 years. So there's a lot of discussions going on that, and therefore no final decision has been made on terms of the midterm access. However, whatever decision is reached by Parliament, I believe that as a fund we will be able to implement, given that the process that Agnes has gone through of basically presidential assent for the bill to be implemented.
Richard Okech Caleb says, I am an active contributor to NSSF for the last 11 years, since 2009. However, what I don't understand is why every economist predicts very low interest for members during the financial year ended June 30th, 2020. Well, did the fund do business for the 9 months before COVID?
Is that Okech?
Yes.
Mr. Okech. Mr. Okech, I'm sure you are pleasantly surprised that in spite of the bad performance, because of the resilience of the fund, the fact that we've got quite a large spread between the three asset classes, that in spite of all that, in fact, we have managed to give a double-digit interest rate, and that double-digit is 10.75%. And I hope that members now will be happy with that. Of course, and I can say this publicly, if the pandemic hadn't come, I believe that we would have had a very good year, almost akin to the record year that we had of 15% to our members. So, unfortunately, COVID did bring a break, because if you look at the stock markets, especially those in Kenya, stock prices for the banks had almost got to 50 shillings per share. They came down to about 30 shillings per share. So, and that followed through within the whole stock exchange. So if those gains in the stock exchange had been recorded onto our books, I believe that we would have been able to pay almost 15% to our members.
All right, thanks, Richard. Let's come to Agnes. Agnes, there's a couple of questions. You've spoken to some in your opening statement on the bill, but just one particular section of John Bosco Msisi's question on when the law is passed, how long will it take for members to access their money based on the different benefits it speaks to?
Thanks, Boris. So, like I said earlier, when the bill is passed, we expect that there will be a commencement date. So it will be clear. It will state that the changes take effect on date X. That is one. Two, in the proposals, for example, there is a clause that will enable the board to come up with new products, etc. That will require some work on our side, which we've already started on. For example, some of the new benefits that have been suggested, the unemployment benefit, the medical, the education, etc. We will have to come up with regulations. Earlier, the chairman mentioned eligibility criteria to determine how our members will be accessing those benefits. So we've already started on that work. I can't give an exact response now because it's all dependent on what eventually is included in the bill. But we will keep our members updated. We are very conscious of the urgency of our members' needs, and we will definitely be looking to roll out these new products as soon as possible. Thank you. All
right, Agnes, Sendege Patrick and Kalulu Ronald ask a similar question. Is there a plan of allowing members to access loans from banks with their benefits as security?
Thanks, Maurice. That in fact speaks to the proposed benefits that we expect to be coming up with. The loan guarantee in this case, I suppose, would be collateral for the members to use their contributions as collateral. It is still one of the issues being discussed. It is not yet concluded at this point. So again, it's all dependent on what Parliament passes in that bill. We are all waiting, like our members, and so we will work with the final bill as passed by Parliament. So if that is included in there, then definitely it will be available. If not, it could be one of the proposals that the board may be considered within the mandate that they will be granted in the same act. So let us wait and see how the final act, if passed, will look like, and we'll definitely come back to our members on this. For now, it is not provided for in the current law.
All right, Gerald, in terms of TV time, we don't have a lot of time, but I see we have more time we may have with our members on the social media platforms. But Gerald, to you, there is a question from Barozi Allen. Is there a plan, and actually there are two questions here. Barozi Allen, is there a plan to develop a policy of remitting back to the savers the interest to their individual accounts so they can also annually invest this interest as we continue to save? And secondly, you want NSSF, or you want farms to remit NSSF contributions promptly, but I wonder how you can help these same farms get back in business.
Okay, let me start with the first one. I think, Agnes could have actually answered this question better because she's a lawyer. Currently, the kind of benefits that we pay are indicated in the NSSF Act. So as it stands, we cannot get the interest that we declare and then give it back to members for them to make their own investment. But I know there are a couple of financial products in the market. I know people have taken advantage of unit trusts. I know people have invested in circles or investment clubs. I think those financial products do still exist in the market. But as it stands, with the current scheme of NSSF, we can only pay back someone's money through the 6 benefits indicated in the NSSF Act. To your second question, what have we done to kind of impact society after COVID happened? I think in Richard's presentation, he indicated that we have invested in the yield fund. Together with the EU, we partnered and created a private equity fund. It is almost 20 million euros. The EU put in 10. We also put in some money. We managed to attract a couple of other investors. As it stands today, almost $6 million has been deployed in 7 different investee companies. The number of jobs, the number of people that are actually benefiting in terms of jobs created come to almost 3,000. That is impact for you. But then, again, in terms of what the fund has done, we announced an amnesty or a deferral at the beginning of COVID. It was very public. As it stands today, we have 1,730 employers that have benefited, and an average of 22.5 billion Uganda shillings in contributions that would have been coming to NSSF, but because of the deferral, they are not coming to us. So for me, I believe that is impact enough. Of course, the debate still remains. Maybe we could have done more, but at least we've done something, and we believe we can continue going forward.
Of the 8th NSSF Annual Members Meeting.
I look forward to your participation.
NSSF, a better life.
Follow his ministry. He is also the president of the Miracle Bible College, which trains and raises ministers who go all over the world. Pastor Robert started the Miracle Center in a papyrus reed structure, together with a few other young ministers, having a congregation of just 1 besides themselves. Today, he is a sought-after speaker and the CEO of Miracle TV Channel 44. He has been a frequent guest on the Trinity broadcast